Hi there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host, Simon Conboy. Carrying on with the draft preview series today. Not long until the draft, just over a week, so I'm excited. Moving on to the AFC, this episode will be covering the team with the first overall pick in the draft and an incredibly large amount of picks in general. They could move about this draft board like nobody's business this year, the Cleveland Browns. So if you've not seen one of these episodes before, what I'll be doing is going through my major team needs heading into the draft with free agency essentially having wrapped up at this point. Of course, in the Browns' case, that's a lot more needs than positions not. It's possibly less relevant than with certain other teams. And then going through my first round mock selections, offering up alternate players that might be available and considered at those spots, and then doing the same thing for rounds 2 and rounds 3. So, the Browns, of course, disastrous last year. This is a team that's, accepted it's in full rebuild. Hence, the amount of draft picks they've got this year. Also next year as well. Got the first overall pick. In terms of needs, first and foremost, quarterback, of course. It's a glaring need. Cody Kessler had some moments last year, but they do need to try and bring someone in, I think, that they can point to and say, this is our guy going forward. They got needs at the wide receiver position, especially with Terrell Pryor having left. Corey Coleman, I wasn't a huge fan of the Kenny Britt signing. They've not got much at that position. Need to get some more weapons there. And the other spot I've got is safety, just because they look very, very poor at the safety spot. Again, it's very difficult to pinpoint just 3 needs here. The offensive line looks strong. Beyond that, you could list anything, and just about any position on this roster as a need. So, going into round 1 in my mock, I, like most other people, have them selecting Myles Garrett, the Texas A&M defensive end, with the first overall selection. In my opinion, this team, there's no quarterback worth taking there. I think the decision's made even easier having that 12th overall pick. Unless they really, really, really have one of these quarterbacks rated very, very highly and really believe in this guy over the rest, they can wait until 12. There'll certainly be somebody available there. Possibly even wait until round 2. To me, there's 2 talents in this draft that you look at and think they're potential perennial all-pro type players, and those players are Myles Garrett and Leonard Fournette. I don't think you want to go running back with the first overall selection. Garrett looks a lot like Julius Peppers on tape. That would be a great selection for them. The toughest type of player to find, I think, is that kind of... these players don't come around often with this physical skill set. I think he'd be a great selection. By all accounts, he seems to be a great kid. I don't think anyone would critique him. Most people consider him the top talent available. I think that's what they do. The second selection they got in round 1's a bit more interesting at 12. I've got them in my mock selecting Jamal Adams. I think there's a good chance the safeties will fall, even though both Adams and Hooker are very, very highly touted prospects. I think there's a chance a couple of those quarterbacks will be taken in the top 10. I think the corners are going to be highly regarded, and I think we'll see these guys fall out of the top 10. The Browns profit from it and will select Jamal Adams. In terms of players they'll consider, should Adams go far higher than that, and it's certainly possible, I think you could potentially make an argument maybe Jonathan Allen will fall to them. If so, they should do that. I think he's one of the better players in the draft. A lot of stories about his shoulder issues that could cause him to fall. I think he'd be worth scooping up. An impact defensive lineman would really help them. They could go with one of the corners if they fall. Even a guy like Gary Conley, who's sort of the 3rd rated corner on a lot of boards, I think he'd be worth considering. His stock seems to have gone up immeasurably in the last few weeks. Not a huge fan of some of the pass rushes at this spot. I think there's bigger needs there. I think Reuben Foster's a guy they could consider. Either of the 2 top wide receivers. Mike Williams would give them a true number 1. I think Corey Davis could come in and immediately help. I think he's got a very pro-ready game. Possibly even OJ Howard, the tight end, because he is, again, much like Myles Garrett, an incredibly talented prospect at the position. Physically, these kind of guys don't come around too often. But as I say, this is a team with so many needs. They could go so many spots, and just take the top player on your board, Cleveland. That's really what you should be doing. At the top of round 2, first pick there. This is where I think they should really hope one of the quarterbacks falls. This would be a reasonable spot, I think, to take any of them. I've been on record, I think Mahomes and Kaiser are the two that I look at, and they look most like NFL prospects to me. Mahomes, I think, is very raw, and I wouldn't want to play him in year 1. If you do, I think there's going to be issues, especially on a team without the caliber of weapons you'd probably want. An inexperienced team, I don't think you want a quarterback with as much adjustment that's going to be needed as this fellow. Similar with Kaiser, but they look like very good prospects. I think Trubisky will be long gone. I don't even think these two guys will be available. They might be able to get Deshaun Watson. I think he's difficult to pinpoint. I think they could look at safety. A guy like Budda Baker, if he's available, I think he'd be a great choice. Obi Melifonwu, I'm not sure he'll be available. His stock seems to be rising. They could look at one of the corners. Corner depth's very good in this draft. There could be a guy like Fabian Moreau. Kevin King, he's got a degree of versatility to his game. He could be considered. Even wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster could be available there. He could offer a big, capable receiver. Kenny Britt's not going to be around a long time, I wouldn't think. He could develop into a good player for them. There's a lot of good tight ends in this draft. I think they're more likely to be tight. They've got another pick towards the end of round 2, or sort of in the middle. That could be where a guy like Evan Ingram could be selected. Just because I think they're incredibly talented players, this would be a case of them possibly being the top guy on the board at that spot. You could see a linebacker taken. I think there's some pass rushing prospects. You never know, a guy like Charles Harris could be taken at 33. Adoree Jackson, I'm not sure where he's going to go. Might be the best athlete in the draft. I think he needs some development. Sidney Jones, this is the kind of team, like you guys like Jones and Mixon, who are very talented but have, in Jones's case, the injury. In Mixon's case, the off-field issues. I think the Browns can take a flyer on them. Jones, I think, if they can get him in with that second rounder that they have, I think that would be a superb pick for them. They could look defensive tackle. I've got them taking Wormley in one of my mocks with the second of their second rounders. I think that would be a good selection. As I've said before, McDowell, Brantley, either of them fall into the second round. They would certainly also be worth considering. In round 3, that's where I think this team should be starting to look at the running backs. I think there'll be guys available in that range, guys like Kareem Hunt, Marlon Mack. Any one of them I think could step in and really improve that run game, especially behind that offensive line. Could look for a linebacker in that spot, a guy like Blair Brown, Duke Riley, Raekwon McMillan, if any of them are available. And any of those sort of players at the positions that I've mentioned for round 2, if any of those guys fall, a guy like Josh Jones, a guy like Fabian Moreau, or countless corners, a Kielo Witherspoon, there's a lot of them in the defensive backs of this draft. Any of them fall, they'd be worth considering at that point. Even if they wanted to go for one of the receivers, again, it's quite a deep group. A guy like Cooper Kupp, he'd be pretty good value here. It will certainly be interesting to see what the Browns do, of course. Who knows, they could also go put together a deal for one of the quarterbacks. They've got the ammunition to do it. Certainly expect to see some Garoppolo rumours floating around, and I'm sure it will be heavily mentioned during draft coverage on day 1 and 2. So that's the Browns. This is one of the tougher ones to do specifically because, again, I think this team's got so many needs. You kind of look at the list of players available and you're like, well, I can justify just about any one of them near the top of the board. So what do you guys think? Any Browns fans out there? What players do you specifically have your eye on, and how do you think this team should attack the draft, especially regarding the quarterback position, which I think is the big question? Let me know, whether it's in the comment section below. Find us at Facebook at Cover Zero. Find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. I'll do my absolute best to get back to each and every one of you. If you enjoyed the show, one, I appreciate it. 2, I recommend checking out some more. Should be doing a live stream of the draft next week. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Cover the rest of the AFC North tomorrow. And there's a bunch of other stuff on there, so hopefully you enjoy those. As always, if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon. would all be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure as always, and go Bucks.